in any way. And that's because the person at issue is Ellen DeGeneres, and Ellen DeGeneres is a famous and well-beloved Hollywood lesbian. So the reason that is relevant, her sexuality, is because Ellen DeGeneres tweeted this out yesterday. This is a tweet of her on Katy Perry's birthday, and it's a picture of Ellen DeGeneres staring directly into Katy Perry's cleavage from about 6 inches away as her partner Portia de Rossi laughs next to her. I think it's Portia de Rossi, correct? I'm pretty sure. And Katy Perry is kind of smiling into the camera slightly awkwardly. And it says, "Happy birthday, Katy Perry. It's time to bring out the big balloons," right? A direct reference to her breasts. Now, let me just suggest, if any man tweeted out this exact photo, if Ellen's head were Harvey Weinstein's head, we would be talking about how this was more evidence of sexual harassment in Hollywood. Ellen DeGeneres is a very, very powerful host. And the fact that Katy Perry seems to be smiling here is not the issue, right? I mean, there are plenty of pictures where Harvey Weinstein is posing with smiling women who he sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. The fact is that there's a double standard with how we treat these situations, and as I've been now saying for weeks, we need some sort of singular standard as to what constitutes appropriate behavior and what does not. Ellen DeGeneres is a lesbian, which means that this is, her acting upon objects of her sexual desire. If a man did the same thing, we would be saying, this is totally inappropriate, how dare he? And it doesn't matter that Katy Perry's smiling, it just shows how toxic masculinity has infused everyone. The whole point here is the double standard. And the double standard applies everywhere. Mark Halperin just was essentially fired from NBC News. He said he resigned or took time off to spend more time with his genitals. But in any case, Mark Halperin, the accusations are that he allegedly sexually assaulted up to 5 women, sexually harassed or assaulted up to 5 women, that he would push them up against the wall, grope them, press his genitals against them. This is Mark Halperin, the guy who wrote Game Change, very famous reporter. He's on NBC News every day, has talked about sexual assault in the most indignant of terms. Sexual assault is horrible. Sexual harassment is horrible. And then meanwhile, in the back room, he's grabbing the interns, apparently. This goes to show you also not only do we have a double standard with regard to people we like, we have a double standard with regard to ourselves. The stuff that we do, we human beings have a unique capacity to do this. We can engage in many of the sins that we condemn other people for, and the mark of a good human being is that you think enough about this to think whether, in fact, you are upholding the standard that you seek to promulgate, that you're upholding the standard that you seek to push. If you're not doing that, then we all need to do better, and I think we can all do better on these scores. But the reason I'm pointing out these 3 differing scenarios, the HW, the Ellen DeGeneres, and the Mark Halperin situations, is because these double standards have been in place for a very long time, and we need to decide as a society what sort of behavior we are willing to accept. I think the behavior should be this: men do not touch women without their permission. That's the behavior, right? We're done here. And it's not the same thing if a man asks out a girl to a bar. It's not the same thing if a man says that a girl is beautiful today. It's not the same thing if a man says that he likes a girl's dress, a woman's dress. Not the same thing at all. We need to make some actual separations here. But instead, what I feel like this has devolved into is now we're just, as usual, conversations in America devolve into who's the victim today. And then we all come out and say, it's terrible that person was victimized. And then we set no standard by which we can determine whether someone is a victim or not until they proclaim themselves a victim, at which point we say they're a victim, right? So if we had found out the H.W. Bush, Heather Lind thing just through a third-party source, not through Heather Lind, then we would have had to decide as a society, is this something okay or not? She declared that she was offended, therefore it was bad. If she had declared that she was not offended, then it would have been fine. Right? Action is not subjective when it comes to societal standards. It's not subjective. You don't get to decide whether an activity is good or bad for me, right? I, as a member of society, determine whether an activity is good or bad. And I'm getting kind of tired of this routine where something is not harassment so long as I'm not offended, but it is harassment if I am offended. We're going to need to draw some lines if we actually want to enforce those lines. Well, I want to talk a little bit about another story that's pretty devastating out of the state of Texas yesterday, and then I want to get into what I really want to talk about today at length, which is the split inside the Republican Party. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at DaVinci. So in today's digital world, there are a lot of people who don't even have office. As far as the Zoe Tur incident, for people who didn't see this and don't know what she's referring to, it's kind of a fun story, so I'll tell it. So story time with Ben Shapiro. So about 3 months ago, you can find this online. Go to YouTube. It was a very big story at the time. It was like the #1 trending topic on Facebook and Twitter. I was invited to go on CNN Headline News on the Dr. Drew Show. And I was invited to talk about how was Caitlyn Jenner a hero or not? This is when ESPN was giving Caitlyn Jenner the Hero Award. Rather than soldiers who had limbs blown off and continued their athletic careers, right? No, Caitlyn Jenner was a hero for being an extraordinarily wealthy white man with a mental disorder.
And so they knew my opinion on this, obviously. I'd written about it. I'd spoken about it. And my belief, there's something I like, and it's called science. And science suggests that if you have not a single cell in your body without a Y chromosome, except for your sperm cells, and if you still have all your appendages, and if you still have your twig and berries and all the rest of it, but you call yourself a woman, no. No, and this goes back to my feeling that your subjective view of yourself is completely irrelevant to me. I don't care what you think you are. I just care what you are. And so, they knew they knew what I was going to say. I'd made this very clear. The producer of the Dr. Drew show, who happens to be a former producer, he told me, on Jerry Springer, decided that it would be a wise idea to have on, to debate me, a guy by the name of Zoe Tur, who is a transgender woman, is a post-op transgender woman, and is a he, because he is still a he. You can lose the parts, and you are still a man. Okay, so they decide to seat the two of us next to each other. And so we're seated next to each other, and this debate starts, and everybody's talking about, is Caitlyn Jenner a hero, or is Caitlyn Jenner not a hero? And finally they come to me, and I said, I don't understand why we are engaging in mass delusion. Right? Well, why are we doing the Emperor's New Clothes bit? All right, we all know Caitlyn Jenner's a man, and we're sitting here pretending Caitlyn Jenner's a woman. And at one point I said to one of the guys on the panel, would you date Caitlyn Jenner? Right, you're a straight guy. Would you date Caitlyn Jenner? And the answer, of course, is no, because Caitlyn Jenner still has a penis. Okay? It's the most feminine penis you've ever seen. And it's... And so I say this, and microaggressions everywhere, and just as I say, microaggressions lead to actual aggression. So what happened is I said this, and this transgender guy sitting next to me, he grabs me by the back of the neck on national TV and says, "If you don't cut that out, you'll go home in an ambulance, or I'll send you home in an ambulance," which is weird because ambulances don't go home, and. And so I was taken aback slightly, to have this guy who was speaking. What precipitated it is there was a point where he had said, "You don't understand genetics," and I said, "What are your genetics, sir?" And it was the "sir" that got to him. And so, in a voice at least 2 octaves lower than mine, he growled at me, "I'll send you home in an ambulance." And what was amazing about the experience was that everybody on the panel, universally on the panel, everybody turned on me after a threat of physical violence and an actual legal battery on national television. They turned on me. You knew that was going to be offensive, didn't you? You knew that was going to be offensive. To which I said, I don't care. Right? That's not my job is not to be inoffensive. My job is to tell the truth. I mean, you had me on this program to say exactly this. Well, the outcome of this is that I went and did what. Really mostly to make the point that you're not supposed to be able to get away with this stuff. I went and I filed a police report for battery. And I did so because during the break, Zoe turned to me and said, "I'll see you in the parking lot." They'd send security out to the outdoors with me. They'd send him to my car. He was threatening me on Twitter, saying he would curb stomp me, etc. Which I have to say is deeply unladylike behavior. And so the end result was that it goes from the police to the DA. It finally gets to the DA, and the DA says that we can't. This fact pattern we can't do. I mean, it's on video, but this fact pattern we can't do anything because the person who assaulted you, essentially, the person who committed battery upon you, is a member of a victimized minority. Essentially, there is no doubt, none, that if I had been the one who grabbed Zoe Tur by the back of the neck and threatened to send him home in an ambulance, that I certainly would have been given some sort of probation. There's no question about it. I've talked to multiple police officers in the LAPD, and they assure me this is the case.